neighbor to neighbor. My name is Linda Corm, and I'm your host today. And today my guest is Karen Campbell. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's nice to be here.
We're so glad you could come, and it's perfect timing because we're here to talk about you a little bit, but also about the deployment of the National Guard, Vermont Guard, that's going to be happening soon here. You're going to fill us in and tell us all about that. So we like to start our shows with you telling us a little bit about yourself. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the Springfield, Vermont area, actually in Wethersfield. Went to Springfield High School, then went off to college in Troy, New York at Russell Sage, and worked in Massachusetts. Got a job at the KEEP program working with adolescents. I have a bachelor's degree in social studies in psychology, and then ended up landing a job with the Department of Children and Families in Massachusetts. I do child protective social work.
So that's a whole nother gamut to deal with, isn't it?
Exactly. So I was down in Springfield, Mass for about 10 years, and then transferred up to Greenfield about 10 years ago when I remarried my current husband, Richard Campbell.
Yeah. And he's your connection with the Guard, I believe.
Correct.
And so tell us about how long, give us a little background about how long he's been in the Guard and what maybe his specialty is and how he works in the Guard.
Sure. Rick has been in the Vermont National Guard, I believe, since he moved back up here from North Carolina. We had both actually gone to high school together, and then he was right straight in the Marines, and we connected again at our 15th high school reunion. And so he transferred when he retired from the Marines. He tried to get into the Guard down in North Carolina, and then enlisted in the Vermont National Guard when he moved back to Vermont. So it's approximately, I think, 12 years or so. I'm not really sure, but he is part of the 86th Brigade that is being deployed to Afghanistan in the next few months. And currently, right now, his MOS or job title, he's in mortuary affairs, but he has medical issues from his previous deployments, and he's not going to be deploying with this.
How many times has he been over there? How many times
He's deployed several times in his Marine career, and this would have been his third deployment with the Vermont Guard. Yeah.
We thank him for that service, and all of them that are going over. And you mentioned a brigade is one. How big is a brigade?
Well, my understanding is that it's approximately 1,500 soldiers are going to be deploying with this group. Yes.
And that's a big number for Vermont, especially.
Right. My understanding is that it's the largest deployment since World War II.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about how families are affected in this process, what we as a community can do, what we should know and be aware of. And so what have you done? I think you're leading the charge a lot of telling people, trying to get people informed about what's going on, the effect on our families and so forth. So tell us about that.
Yeah, having been through previous deployments and being so far away from Camp Johnson and Colchester, where kind of the hub of activity is, we, several other spouses and myself, have been trying to raise a little bit of awareness about how things have changed in the last few years and what supports are out there. In terms of how many people are going to be affected. When this large of a group goes, they're saying 1,500 soldiers, and generally you kind of think of there's going to be at least 3 people that are directly affected with that one soldier's deployment.
Not like the 4,500 people.
Exactly, and then you don't have kind of not including the ripple effects of how, through employment connections or neighbors or extended family, those kinds of issues as well.
When you say people will be affected by this, you're talking about employment. We're talking about kids without their parents, at home and so forth. And so you've helped it by making the schools aware of that situation.
Correct. The National Guard and the Department of Education in Vermont brought the Military Child Education Coalition here and provided a couple of trainings, several trainings at this point. There was one that was held back in May for school counselors and people in the community to kind of educate folks on supporting the Guard and military. And after that training, they and part of the training is to kind of develop an action plan to bring back to your community to try to help raise awareness about the resources that are out there and whatnot. And that's what I've done. I approached our school counselor, Lucille Messina at Oak Grove, met with her and talked with her and shared information, and also approached some of the other school counselors within the district, and then also called up Ron Staley and met with him, with Ms. Messina, to try to provide some education and resources and raise awareness in terms of what's out there, so that they could try to start working to identify the children in our area. There are about 100 military children within Windham County that have a household member in their home that's military, and so that they could know what the resources were that are available out there. It's changed a lot over the years. Back during my husband's deployment with Task Force Green Mountain, there was a family readiness staff in Vermont of about 3 people. And at this point, there's been a lot more funds have been appropriated, and Major Gates over the last 3 years has really developed and strengthened the family readiness programming, and there are a staff of 36 now. They have a military life consultant who's a psychologist that can come out and meet with the schools, can meet with families, and can consult and work with folks. There are family support people that oversee the family readiness volunteers. There's a specific liaison with the Military One Source, which is a national resource that folks can access, online, and also now through Camp Johnson. There are veteran outreach workers. There are yellow ribbon programs. There's just so much more now.
Well, in all this this outreach, people wonder why you need it so much. Why? I mean, being gone, a lot of people have jobs that take them away from their families, but there is an added stress because they're in a very dangerous situation. So you're always thinking about that.
Right.
And so you need more support. Plus, we're dealing with a younger population too that might have really young kids at home.
Correct.
So that makes it harder. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, just speaking personally from my own experience and having to, survive for a year and a half as a single parent, you kind of have to take on the jobs that were designated to your partner that's now gone. And these days there aren't as many, speaking for myself, I don't have an extended family network in Brattleboro. I have to develop my own network of friends, coworkers, and kind of make that network ready for myself when I need it. And then as you say, with a military deployment, your emotions are way up and you're stressed in addition to everything else. So it's a little different than just a business trip and he's going to be gone for 5 days. You've got to kind of plan legally in terms of the power of attorney, the bank accounts, the bills, passports, all those things need to be in order. You need to have things that are right at your fingertips so that when you do have a crisis, because they're predictable and they're going to happen, life throws curveballs, so that it's right there, so that, if you are in the midst of all this emotion and, gee, the oil burner went out, who am I going to call? I don't know. You can just go to it, kind of a thing.
Now, the support that you get from the military on this, it doesn't have like a checklist of suggested things to get all your ducks in line.
Right, through the pre-deployment process, and in the past, and now even more so, they provide us with tools, little personal organizers and handbooks. There are yellow ribbon briefings that happen throughout the state. There's several different ones that go on prior to the deployment to kind of help get ready during the deployment, and then kind of coming back for the reintegration as well. There's also, and those tools and the information is reinforced through the local family readiness group meetings that happen, throughout the state. What's different this time is that they are encouraging and have changed it. In the past, we've had to go to where your husband drills. So like my husband drills in Northfield at Norwich University. So through a previous deployment, I wasn't throwing the kids in the van and trucking it up there every week for a 6 o'clock FRG meeting, because by the time I got up there, I've got more driving than I'm getting meeting or support.
Yeah.
So it's different, right? It's different now because they're saying you can go to your local FRG. So we can go to Westminster, even though my husband doesn't drill there. We can still go there for the support and resources and to make connections.
Now, how much you talked about this organized army or military support system. How much is just sort of people helping people, an informal kind of?
I think a lot of it is because
It's very isolated. I mean, you've got the hub of Camp Johnson up there and the kind of the formalized network, and then you've kind of got sprinklings. You've got 5 family assistance centers that are sprinkled throughout the state right now. The closest one to Windham County is in Rutland, where Bethany Bergeron mans up there. And they are kind of like the one-stop shopping. You know, you get in touch with them and they can help connect you with whatever it is you're looking for in terms of services or support or advocacy kind of a thing. And then you have your probably about monthly meetings at your local FRG, which are run by a volunteer leader. And
what would that be?
Family Readiness Group.
Okay.
Right. So you have those kind of formal things, but the day-to-day stuff, you kind of have to form it yourself.
And do you all know do the women all, or the
Not
people left behind
necessarily.
know each other? No.
Not necessarily. Sometimes folks go to these kind of more formalized things to try to, you know, everybody's different and everybody can pick and choose what they're going to need. And so at the FRG meetings or other events, if you make a connection with somebody, you kind of put that in your pocket and you kind of use that to build your support network kind of a thing. It's a very big issue. You know, in the past, and when my husband was gone with Task Force Green Mountain, I literally went to a Blue Star Banner event hosted by the Legion, trying to find another spouse that was going through the same thing that I was, because I needed that connection. I needed to find somebody, because nobody else really understands what you're going through unless they're going through it themselves. So I was looking to find somebody else, and I did, and we've been
good friends
ever since.
Yeah, and I would think that would be almost you know, sort of that grassroots connection, which almost means more than all the other stuff.
right, and there's
The Yellow Ribbon Group, and that's very active in Brattleboro as well. They meet every week at the same location. Vicki Nadeau and Terry Livingston and Elaine Dietrich are kind of the tri-chairs right now, and they were a huge support in the past. Because I wasn't making it up to the, you know, to the other meetings, but they basically they provide some grassroots local support, and their whole mission is to really support the soldiers and as well as the families that are behind. They send out packages on a regular basis. They have an Adopt a Soldier program.
Now, if people wanted to contribute to those packages or the Adopt a Soldier or write letters or anything, this group sounds like it would be who would you contact.
exactly.
Is there a number that people could contact it, or do you want?
Yeah, I don't have that right
off the top of my head. I definitely, you know, I have that information with me. But Vicki Nadeau and Terry Livingston would be the contact people.
Okay.
And I know their information has been out there for several years. You know, I've been involved with the group since 2005.
Because I've heard of people saying, well, I'm going down to fill boxes. And I just never knew whether this happened or anything. So that's really helpful. That I would imagine that means a lot to the troops that receive stuff.
Oh, it
like
does.
that.
It's priceless.
You know, it's really priceless. And in the past and currently, we also are trying to incorporate the children in the community. We write letters to the soldiers, and you know those mean a lot to them as well.
I think I heard once where one of the hot items being sent over were handy wipes or something, or baby cleanup tissues because of the sand they had.
Right, trying to get the sand off.
But you don't think of those things, and I guess the military doesn't think of them either. That's supply them. So, but they're they make a difference. One of the other little support things that's been going on is the helmet liners. People have been knitting helmet liners for the Afghan for this deployment. Anything else that you know that's been going on in that way? If this is a specific thing people can make and get in?
You know, there's lots of little groups doing lots of little different things. You know, the Helmet Liner Project is a great one. I've heard of that one. And I know that just recently there was the, I think it was Shumlin that was trying to do the Operation Home Front, trying to help get the troops home
For Christmas.
For Christmas, right? Between the pre-mob training and then when they actually head up to Camp Atterbury to be mobilized. One of the other things that I'm involved in is a little project that we started here. Some of the other military spouses and I have formed the Dragon's Den Lending Library.
Dragon's Den Lending Library.
Right.
Okay, what's that about?
Well, the dragon comes from the Westminster Armory because they're the Delta Dragons. And basically, back at the beginning of the year, when I was starting to think about preparing my own children for their father's deployment, I was trying to find some books to kind of use as tools, and had a really hard time finding what I wanted really accessible. And then started thinking about other people might be having the same issue, started talking with other folks, developed a book list, and over several months kind of went through the protocol of approaching both the military and the family readiness folks to seek and obtain authorization and permission to house it at the Westminster Armory. So we're going to be opening a lending library for military children in the next month or so up there. We're having with a kickoff event to introduce it to the community, which we will have happened on the 15th, and planning to have lots of books about deployment, picture books, books about other cultures, and kind of non-threatening books about what different branches of the military do and what the jobs are of those military personnel, so that the kids can kind of envision it in a non-threatening, non-political kind of a way, and help aid them through the separation, as well as provide a tool for families, and also provide a connecting place where folks can see each other as they come and go from the library, so they have another kind of local outlet.
I think that's one of the things many people don't understand is how varied the jobs are in the military.
Right.
I mean, and it's like you can get training in so many areas that's really expanding. It's just not shooting a gun.
No.
A lot of computer guys and, different drivers, medical fields, and, all different kinds of things.
I think I read once where for every soldier deployed, there's 7 support behind that soldier.
Right.
Let's talk about, since we've had 3, this will be the 3rd deployment for Vermont Guard. When a soldier returns, what kind of things happen then? I mean, what are the challenges?
I mean, this will be the 3rd deployment. There's a lot of onesies and twosies that are going though too. They just don't get quite as much attention because they're not such a big group. There's a lot of different things that happen in terms of coming back. The National Guard Bureau has instituted these yellow ribbon events, as I talked about before, in terms of the pre-deployment academy kind of things, and the support during and then after, and they help the families and the soldier think about how the transition is going to be, because it's very different, because whoever's left behind has taken on all the jobs and is used to running the house without any kind of negotiation or and then enter this person that's been gone for so long, and things are a little different and some things might be the same, and so it's all a new kind of mix there. So they provide some support and direction around what folks might experience, and tips to how to get through it, and who to contact if you're struggling and need additional help.
And that describes the environment the soldiers coming back into. But how quickly can they switch off and leave the environment they had before? Over there, whatever this, we just don't even know what the environment's like over there.
Right,
and they're screened when they come back through, is my understanding.
Screened?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of when they come back from being overseas, when they are at the when they come back in state, there's a whole kind of out-briefing kind of thing that goes on. Where they are, physically, emotionally, those kinds of things. And they kind of go through the whole debriefing kind of things. And then it's mandated that, and I'm not sure exactly on the time frames, but I think it's like 30, 60, 90 days out, they have kind of a check-in kind of a thing. And they've developed and strengthened the programs for the veterans as well. They have the whole Veterans Outreach program now that's in place, and there's folks that are veterans that kind of outreach and are able to provide some support and check-in and referral and services to vets that are having issues reintegrating. And they are sprinkled, with the family assistance centers throughout the state. There's vet-to-vet programs, groups that are meeting to support each other throughout the state as well.
So massive steps have been taken since World War II, I'm sure, of course, everybody's there, as far as recognizing and recognizing the need for mental health, emotional support when you're switching gears like this. This is a big gear shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So, and how do they do this? Or do the soldiers feel is all this work paying off basically of support going and coming?
I think so. I think for the most part, everybody feels very supported.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Everybody kind of has their own kind of way of going through it. I think, we felt very supported, even though, again, all the kind of formalized stuff is up north. We would just, from being at the airport when he was coming and going, people just thank you for your service, and if you're wearing a pin, was your husband over or whatnot, and there's an overwhelming amount of support and gratitude for the job that's being done.
This is sort of a silent thing that's going on. People just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, in some ways, I don't think the general tone, like in the press or radio or something, reflects or even is plugged into what ordinary people are just doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it strikes me.
Yeah.
You mentioned Camp Johnson. Where is that?
Colchester.
Colchester.
Right.
Okay, and that is the main live base.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no active kind of military base in Vermont, but
Mhm.
that is the main hub of the National Guard, and right. And there's an air guard
Are
up
there
in
planes up there?
Burlington.
Yeah.
Right.
Do they use the Burlington airfield to?
I believe so, but I really know even less about the air.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about getting ready and supporting families on the way, and then when the soldier comes back with the challenges the family has and the soldier has. What can people do specifically? It's like you don't advertise who's in the military, who's in the Guard, particularly, or do we, or should we?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks are kind of private. Everybody has their different comfort level,
Mhm.
and people should just respect that. But if you know that somebody's Guard and somebody's or military and going through something or a struggle, just acknowledging that, and so that they know that you're aware of what's going on, and that you're supportive, or that you'd like to support if there's something that comes up or some way that they can support, and just kind of checking in,
With the kids maybe,
Right.
or cook them a dinner or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. That would be.
That goes a long way. Even neighbors shoveling the end of your driveway on occasion, is helpful.
Oh, yeah. So can you give us some good dates at this point? I know that.
Well, this in terms of the brigade that's about to deploy, they are currently at what they call JRTC, which is a 3-week training. They are at Fort Polk, Indiana right now, and they should be coming back towards the end of November, and then they'll have a break, and then they'll be headed to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, for their pre-mobilization, and then probably in waves they'll head out to Camp Atterbury. There's such a large deployment. They're not going to all be able, nor would they ever put them all in one plane, so there'll be waves, and it'll change several times before, everything. I mean, that's a big thing about the, it's going to change, it's clear as mud, you just got to be okay with that,
Mm-hmm. When they fly them over, do they fly them over in commercial jets, or do they have military jets?
Couldn't tell you, don't want to know.
Somehow it'll be handled. Right?
Yeah.
Another piece we didn't talk about is technology with the internet and email. Does that help?
It's a double-edged sword, in my opinion, I mean, on one hand, it was great to be able to speak to my husband when he was overseas, and he had, a satellite cell phone kind of a thing. On the other hand, you kind of grow accustomed to being able to speak or have that kind of contact or webcam or whatnot, and so when you don't, you kind of wonder, kind of a thing. And I mean, funny story, when he was getting ready to come back, he sold his cell phone, and so at one point I called, and I got somebody else speaking a different language, and so needless to say, I was very nervous for a while. So it's kind of a double-edged sword,
When my son was over there when the Iraq War started, for 3 to 4 weeks we didn't hear from him at all. And I think they would not allow emails to get out because they didn't want positions revealed.
Right.
But you never know when that's coming.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't say, you don't hear from me. All of a sudden it's just dead.
Right.
And so that's a little nerve-wracking.
Silence.
Yeah.
But it's the whole, no news is good news.
I think that's how we looked at it. And and just trusted that everything would be okay, or we'd hear about it in a big way, and that would be,
Right.
and then you know, but until you hear, you don't assume that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for sharing this with us. I think this is a really important time for people in the state to realize how much service is really done
Mhm.
by so many of our citizens, and we thank them all for that service, and thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. It was nice to be here.
We thank you for watching. You've been watching Neighbor's Neighbor. My name is Linda Corum. I've been here with Karen Campbell. And we hope you have a good day, and we'll see you on our next show.